Renowned lawyer Dr. Olisa Agbakoba SAN has raised the alarm over what he described as a worsening medical negligence crisis in Nigeria, calling for an immediate and comprehensive overhaul of the country's health regulatory framework. The former president of the Nigerian Bar Association said the death of Nkanu, the 21-month-old son of Nigerian author Chimamanda Adichie and her husband, Ivara Esege, must offer an opportunity to reform the health system in Nigeria. He made the remarks on two separate occasions, including calling for a probe into the death of the toddler. Also, the governor of Lagos State, Mr. Babajide Sanwo-Olu, ordered a probe into the alleged medical negligence that reportedly led to the death of Master Nkanu. Joining us on this show to discuss the unacceptable incompetence present in some Nigerian healthcare facilities, how we can strengthen Nigeria's regulatory frameworks, enhance professional accountability, and ensure that victims of malpractice have access to justice, is Dr. Olisa Agbakoba SAN, former president of the Nigerian Bar Association. Good morning, Dr. Agbakoba, and thank you for joining us on the morning show.
Good morning. Thank you. Morning. Thank you very much, Ruben.
Good morning.
Okay.
Happy New Year to you too.
Yes.
Happy New Year to you, sir.
Happy New Year.
Good to see you, sir.
Dr. Agbakoba, two quick things.
Good to see
The
you.
first is, this is a coroner's case. If a person dies in a hospital, public or private, within 24 hours, the expectation is that the coroner will move in.
Yes.
Now, already, there's a story out there that, there was an overdose of Propofol used for anesthesia.
Yes.
Now, who arrived at that conclusion that is in the public domain? Has there been a coroner's effort in this particular case? Do you know that? If not,
Yes.
why has anybody jumped to any conclusion that, this is a case of the failure on the part of the anesthetist? Second, you've been quoted as talking about medical reforms. What kind of medical reforms do you want specifically, do you envisage, would improve the situation in Nigeria?
Sure. Yeah. Okay, thanks very much. I don't think anyone...
Hello, sir.
Yes, so thanks. Happy New Year to you all in the studio. I'm not sure anyone can say categorically what has happened in respect of Chimamanda's child. But I think she's entitled to say, my child walked into the hospital and came out in a body bag. So it's up to the process to establish what has happened. So she's made a complaint that her child was... So it's good to unpack some of the things that are at least accepted. Chimamanda's child was not feeling well. She had a cold, he had a cold, and therefore they thought it was a normal thing. But when it lingered, they took him to a pediatric hospital. I think the pediatricians discovered that there might be some issues, and there was a reference to Eurocare. Eurocare needed to conduct some more critical examination because apparently there was a swelling in the head. So that required an MRI. Now, for a 21-month-old baby to be still in an MRI situation when you go under that thing would be extremely difficult. I've done MRIs so many times. It's claustrophobic. And therefore, the only way to make sure the child would survive the MRI in a way that would have a medically fit result was to sedate. So here comes Propofol. But Propofol would require to be administered in an extremely careful situation, given its very potent effect. You remember, it's what killed Michael Jackson. So we now have what is called the Michael Jackson standard. So I think the issue now would be, having made the allegation by Chimamanda, there's a whole process that is required. You're right to say that a coroner's inquest would have to be ordered. The coroner's inquest has something preceding it. There's a chief pathologist of Lagos State. He would, in spite of I would assume that the hospital would have conducted a cause of death examination by a pathologist. But in my experience, the chief pathologist of Lagos was required to conduct a joint pathology to determine cause of death, where the family might even appoint its own pathologist so that that can be established. But basically, when that is established, it then leads to the second stage, the coroner's inquest. The coroner's inquest would now give the reasons for death, like in the case I did of Bejuboma, where the coroner found the hospital liable. We then proceeded to the Medical Dental Council of Nigeria, and we were successful. And then we took the case to the High Court, and at that point, the hospital, agreed to settle. So that's the framework that, is on ground. So the question is, the hospital, having announced that they have done some internal procedures, I'm a bit surprised that they are taking a bit of time, because it's very easy to establish what has happened. First of all is to determine whether there was a checklist, and the intensivist would have to be on ground, somebody who deals with the flow of air, because the problem with intubating a child of that age is that the air path might be blocked. So it's got to be something very carefully monitored. You've got to be looking at all the parameters, all the vitals, to make sure that the child is stable. And when you move the child from MRI to ICU, that's another difficult challenge. So all these things we need to hear from the hospital when they issue their reports. But what Chimamanda's case has done is to highlight what goes on every day. I mean, last year I probably did about 20 odd cases in this field. All sorts of things happen. And therefore, what I think needs to be done, apart from just punishing, assuming we found that the hospital was culpable, it's not enough. You might punish, you might do this, but it's a multi-layered approach that is required. And that's where we come to the laws and regulatory environment relating to medical issues. It might surprise you to know that the last chief medical officer for Nigeria was Sir Samuel Banua, who retired in 1976. Now, what the chief medical officer of the country does is responsible for clinical governance. So it's his own office, separate from the minister, that administers all the inspections, standard setting, and every other issue related to the type of concern we see and the types of complaints that are coming out of the hospitals. There is no chief medical officer. The minister of, the federal minister of health is the chief medical officer. He can't do that. He can't do policy and clinical supervision. Here in Lagos, we have about 5 chief medical officers.
If I may interject.
But there's no central. Yes.
As you're speaking on
Sure.
regulatory framework, let me just add a layer to it so you can speak to everything holistically. Yesterday we had Professor Roberts on the program who spoke to the fact that, well, even if there are doctors who are, or medical practitioners, excuse me, that are challenged with regards to, suspected cases of negligence and malpractice and so forth, that ultimately the regulatory framework is so weak that people will still go to who they want to go to. People can still parade as medical practitioners, and they will still have willing customers or willing patients who are happy to be treated by them. What is your take on this? The regulatory environment, how much is being done to ensure that those who have been proven to have been involved in instances of negligence, of malpractice, that they do not practice, or do we kind of just leave everything to fate and to a higher power, as we tend to do in the African continent?
Well, that's exactly my point. For instance, the regulatory supervision for erring doctors is controlled by the Medical Dental Council of Nigeria. But that council is opaque. It's only consisted of doctors. They are underfunded. So the results are very poor. It takes forever to get a result. So nobody gets punished. That's the point. There's no punishment. I would recommend the UK practice where you have a general medical council where they must conclude investigations and issue a report within 90 days. Here I've seen cases where it takes 5 years to issue a verdict on an erring doctor. So the whole place is just open. There's no regulation. Anybody can do anything. There's another big problem that is coming in the field of medical aesthetics. Botoxing and all sorts. All over in Lekki. People are dying every day, particularly young girls, who go there to get injected. That's another problem. So the only way to resolve this problem is to have a very strong regulatory framework driven by a doctor, and that doctor is usually called the chief medical officer at the federal level. He will be inserted into the system. The minister would deal with policy and politics. Lagos State ought to have a chief medical officer, not 5 or 6. So that doctor focuses very strictly on all the issues that you've raised.
Okay. Good to see you again, Dr. Agbakoba, and Happy New Year to you. So, I'm happy...
Hello, how are you? Happy New Year to
very,
you.
very well. I'm happy that you made mention of Chef Peju Ogoma's case. So, I'm happy about that because we were part of that case. And you know the role, we played out here on that case. So, it's also music to my ears that you said the hospital settled, right? In the end.
Yeah, but I was in the case.
Okay, so the hospital...
I was in the case.
The hospital settled.
I was the lead in the case.
Very good.
Yes.
What happened to the doctors that were found complicit? Have they lost their license today? Is there any penalty on them?
To be honest, I don't know. That's part of the opaqueness I'm describing. I have absolutely no idea. One of them who took part in the surgery came from Umuahia, Federal Medical Center. He arrived into Lagos on Friday, took part in the surgery on Saturday, and disappeared to Umuahia. And the coroner said, "What sort of rubbish is this?"
So that means that
How
doctor, for instance, is still back practicing in Umuahia. So you can see the problem.
No, in Saudi Arabia.
He has
in Saudi Arabia now.
So he has even jackpot now.
It's in Saudi Arabia. Absolutely.
So you can see that, and the other doctors that participated in that surgery that mismanaged Chef Peju Ogoma, I'm probably sure that nothing happened to them.
Yes.
Okay, one of them we can see that he has gone off the hook now in Saudi Arabia.
That's it.
Nothing happens to them. So
yes,
it now goes back to my question that even when we go to courts,
sure,
what justice do we even get in cases of medical negligence? Because if you say the hospital settled, they probably paid the husband of Chef Peju Ogoma some money. But the real doctors that perpetrated the acts, they can still jolly well go live their life. So what justice do we get in the end? Because the true justice will be that those doctors, for instance, should be flagged and never be allowed to perform for a certain duration of time or stiffer penalty, but they went off the hook. So what justice are we going to get?
I agree. No, but I agree with you. That's why I'm saying that the Medical Dental Council of Nigeria is in need of massive reform. The way it is structured is opaque. It's only comprised of doctors. In the UK, the GMC is set up of doctors, lay people, legal practitioners, and the sanctions are imposed and implemented. Here, I don't know how many doctors really get off, lose their licenses when there is a decision. So why I'm calling for a reform is to say also that if a doctor is reprimanded and sanctioned, that penalty must be carried out. That's not happening now.
So can we stretch it? If that penalty is not being carried out because the regulatory agencies are not doing their work, can we then institute a new suit and charge those doctors for culpable homicide or manslaughter or murder?
Yeah, there are two things here. There is the institutional process and there's the family process. So the family is entitled to raise an issue with the disciplinary body. In Nigeria, it would be the Medical Dental Council of Nigeria. Where the state comes in is the coroner's inquest. So the governor of Lagos State, really doesn't have the power to institute a probe, but I'm sure he did it in good faith. So what we want to see now is the institutional process by the coroner's inquest. Then the family would usually take the report of the coroner's inquest and that of the MDCN, put it together and file a personal action to claim for compensation. So these are the three-pronged processes that we have. But in my view, all the processes these three have described, maybe apart from the coroner's inquest, because in the Beju Boma's case, it was absolutely brilliant. But the MDCN, no, it requires complete overhaul. You need to put timelines. In the UK, under the GMC, it's a 90-day process. They must finish the investigation and deliver a verdict in 90 days. Yes.
Dr. Agbakoba, I get your point. You want appointment of a chief medical officer who oversee processes, discipline, patient safety, and all of that, provide a policy framework. Now, in a country where we have the kind of situation we have, how do you think that just creating that bureaucracy, reviving it, will solve the problem? We have Accountant General of the Federation. We have Auditor General of the Federation. We have all these positions. I don't want to add the office of the Attorney General. But Nigerians have issues with all of this. So what is the guarantee that creating an office would solve most of our problems? I get your point about regulatory framework, but in a health sector where there is no infrastructure, where half of the doctors are running abroad, nurses are fleeing, everybody is distracted. How do you think just having a chief medical officer will solve the problem? Briefly.
No, because there's the Abuja Declaration, there's the African Union requirement, there's the World Bank, there's the World Health Authority requirement that 15% of the national budget should be devoted to the healthcare sector. Right now, we're doing about 4%. So that's all part of the problem. You've got to put money. If you want this country to be healed and well, you've got to fund the place. If you don't fund it, we'll have sick people and we'll have quacks. So to say that we should just sit, because your question is implying we should just do nothing, I don't agree. We ought to do something, you know, in all sectors. Nigeria is suffering a governance issue. Look at what's happening in River State between Wike and Fubara. Is that in the interest of the people? So it's all interlinked and interrelated. You have political people who have no interest in Nigerians. They're only interested when it comes to elections. So everyone is now focused on 2027. After 2027, they run away. That's not right now. That's why we have all this mess. So the health sector today is an issue, and sadly, it takes the death of Chimamanda's daughter, son, to bring it to the fore. People have been dying every day. Every day. We see, I'm just dealing with a case now where a woman walks into the hospital with her husband to deliver a bouncing baby, and the baby dies on the table.
In fact, there's a case...
What do you say to that?
In fact, there's a case, doctor, in Sokoto, of somebody that they forgot a scissors in her stomach, and she died.
Very common.
A recent case.
It's happening. It's happening. It's happening. So I'm not interested in whether, Ruben, you say that it will not work. Let us first put the system in place and see whether it will work or not. So that's the issue. My main point is that the governance problem, the governance issue needs to be reformed in the medical sector. Funding up to 15% of the budget needs to be put in place. Well, if it doesn't work, too bad. Then we'll just continue killing ourselves.
On that note.
But that's not the right thing to do.
On that note, thank you very much, Dr. Olisa Agbakoba SAN.